Good evening, everybody. You're all very welcome to this evening's event, which is readings by three very fine Irish poets, Iggy McGovern, John F. Dean, and Rita Ann Higgins. We will also be entertained by Achill musicians Diarmuid Gilty on fiddle and John Butler on uilleann pipes. Diarmuid started his music playing at Scollachla in 1985 and became its chairperson between 2006 and 2019. He has played at the Achill International Harp Festival along Irish, Breton and Galician traditional artists and contributes regularly on TG Car, Radio na Gaeltachta, RTE, radio and television. John Butler initially studied uilleann pipes playing as a teenager, then moved to Achill in 2009, where he established his own pipe-making workshop. He is now a master at both the craft of pipe making and playing the instrument, which you will hear for yourselves this evening. Now, just to briefly introduce our first poet, who is Iggy McGovern, behind me. Iggy was born in Coleraine but has lived in Dublin for most of his professional career. He has had a dual career as Professor of Physics at Trinity College Dublin until 2013 and as a poet, and he has published 5 collections to date. These include The King of Suburbia in 2005, Safe House in 2010, The Eyes of Isaac Newton in 2010, A Mystic Dream of 4, which is a sonnet sequence based on the life of William Rowan Hamilton in 2013, and Making Waves, published in 2021. His awards include the Hennessy Award for Poetry, the Glenn Dimplex New Writers Award for Poetry, the Ireland Chair of Poetry Bursary, and the McCrae Literary Award of the University of Ulster. His most recent collections of poems is Hammer and Spark, from which he will explain the title and read this evening. So give a warm welcome, please, to Iggy McGovern.
So, thank you, Edward, for that introduction. It's a delight to be here. I've been in Achill Island event before and always enjoyed it. So, my book, Hammer and Spark, a strange name. I'll try to explain a little bit as we go along. But I can tell you at the start that the book is divided into 4 parts. And part number 1 is called The 4 Ps. Now already we're getting into strange territory. 4 Ps, just capital P. That's all. 4 Ps. And those 4 Ps are given the name of prayer, physics, politics, and poetry. And I did not work that out for myself. It belongs to someone called Enda McDonagh, who was the professor of moral theology and canon law. And how he came to it, I'm not sure exactly. But this was his response to the idea that too many college debates were about either science versus religion. And he was determined to spread that and make it more realistic. And so he added in politics and the arts as well. So I hope that gets you some way into it. So you can actually, if you have the book, get a look at the book. There's more of an explanation of how it came to be that. Now the first poem I will read then is from one of the 4 poems in the prayer box, if you like. And it is called Easter Blessing. And what it is a memory of an incident when I was 9 years old and an altar boy. So you find it on page 8 if you're reading the book. Easter blessing. Picked on for his size, his lace a source of teasing by the others, sent out to extinguish the Easter candle. Alpha and Omega, the wick lies beyond his tiptoed reach. Afraid to fail, to face the mockery, he grasps the beeswax in both hands, eases it up and out of the holder in arcing elevation. The molten cup descends upon his head in fiery baptism, crowning the martyr, capping the jester. And I just add a little bit to that at the bottom. It says, I will always remember my mother removing wax from my hair with paper and hot iron. I still have it. The next poem comes out of the physics box. Don't panic. It's dedicated to a man called E.T.S. Walton, who was a Trinity College physicist. And he was the first person to split the atom. And for that he got the Nobel Prize, or a share of the Nobel Prize. The only one in Ireland at the time. The poem is actually called Hammer and Spark. And the reason for that is that Walton's success had been greeted by one newspaper with a cartoon of him smashing the atom with a very large mallet. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that partly that he, in his retirement, and like all physicists, he never really retired. He just kept coming in. He wasn't being paid. And he actually had the room next door to mine. And I could hear everything that was going on in his room. And mostly what he was doing was playing with electrical sparks. So he had come a long way from splitting the atom to playing with electrical sparks. So that's Hammer and Spark. And it's the oldest poem in the book, and so it carries the title of the book. You find it on page 12 if you're listening. Hammer and Spark, a memory of E.T.S. Walton. Not the mace proclaiming the glorious news, nor the cartoon mallet of the first atom smashers, nor the claw dismantling the timbers for reuse, nor the gavel expounding the laws of student physics, nor the sledge on ploughshares for the global village. Listen, a gentle tapping, the ping of the silversmith, the scintillations that betoken faith. And again, there's a little added to that. He was basically a very religious man. So that's the faith part of it. The next poem belongs in the politics box, and it's a little bit longer than those other two poems. I grew up in Northern Ireland, where politics meant two opposing cultures. The poem was written the day after the vote on the Belfast Agreement. And like many others, I was hoping for peace, but I was also hoping for a sharing of cultures. The poem makes use of the 3-letter word ending ISH. It has no meaning. ISH is not, you could probably think about what it might stand for, but ISH is a way of trying to dilute something. So if you're talking about some anything you want to say, you want sort of ish, yeah? That's what it is. So it's a way of diluting the opposing views, and it also helps with the rhyme. So the poem is called Agreement Blues, and you find it on page 21. I'm afraid there are a lot of northern isms in this, so bear with me. Agreement Blues. So you joined Dunloy's, apprentice boys, river dance through the village squarish, and you want Liam Neeson to play Edward Carson. The theme is the Longderry Irish. And you jig, as they say, with both feet anyway. Would you not like to be British Irish? So you watched GAA, Match of the Day, feature RUC Chucky or Larish, and you followed the Linfield on 2 Hills 16 to capture the famed Sam Maguireish. And you find you can play with both legs anyway. Would you not like to be British Irish? So you said rosaries, that successive drum crees would get weather that's moderate to fairish. And you've Cardinal Paisley at odds on to be next Pope when this one will retire-ish. And you get down to pray on both knees anyway. Would you not like to be British Irish? So you poured your black bush and called for some hush. There was something you had to declare-ish, that you lived just to see the whole lot agree, thanks to Bertie and Wolf Tony Blairish. When you voted in May, you knew anyway, in your heart, you had always been Briarish. Thank you. Part 2 of the book is called The Home Front. It's not political, but just these are poems that are based on stories that were culled from among my relations, old and young. Now the first of the 2 short poems is called The Boys Named Ignatius. Not a very inspiring name. I'm mostly known as Iggy, so now is the time for the correct name and its origin and that of some fellow sufferers. You find it on page 29. The boys named Ignatius. I was the only one in the school, the only one in our loyalist town, tagged by some as Loyola of Spain. I was long grown up before I would learn. This birthmark came much closer to home. One Father Ignatius of the Gran, famed healer of both body and mind, that my mother attended and, in thanks, gave her firstborn boy his name. And then I found I was not alone. Boys my age from border counties wearing the same life scapular, except for one too young to fit, whose grandmother had no male child. But undeterred, she bided her time until the next generation. that's it. There's one very interesting story about that Father Ignatius. He did seem to have these powers to change, to actually heal people. And one man from Tyrone went to him because his hair was falling out. And Father Ignatius said, it'll grow back in. And it did, but it grew back a different colour. And he went back to complain. The other poem's not so funny, maybe, I don't know. The other poem is a combination of two things that I remember about my father. First of all, there was some confusion about the dates of his birth and his baptism. And the second thing was that he suffered some disappointment in his potential career as a publican. And the poem is called A Couple of Days. Page 31. According to the files of church and state, Dad was baptized 2 days before he was born. So, did he have the cure for some disease? Or was he marked out for some bit of luck? More likely, there was alcohol involved, which made it all so gratingly ironic that after a score of hardy years in hock, to a well-off publican, to earn the promise to go guarantor in buying his own pub, he would find himself on the very day of closure carrying the heavy coffin of his benefactor, a burial of dreams. Too late, he says, to start all over again, to think that it was just a couple of days. So now we move into part 3 of the book, and this is called A Crown of Sonnets for Eileen. My wife Eileen died a few years ago, and I wrote this crown in the aftermath of her death. And I'm sure you know the sonnet is a common poem form of 14 lines. A crown of sonnets is a little bit more challenging form. In this case, and there are different cases, in this case it's based on 14 sonnets. And those sonnets are linked together so that the last line of any sonnet has to be repeated as the first line of the next sonnet. So they're linked together in that way. Excuse me. Now the crown for Eileen obviously has 14 bits to it. I'm only going to use 3 of them. And what they are, these 3 turn out to be a record of our time together. Well, all of them are a record of our time together, from the first meeting to our last farewell. And each of the 3 sonnets I've chosen contain some element of disappointment. And yet somehow we always manage to keep going on. So the first sonnet is number 3, and it comes on page 45. And a little piece of advice, or not advice, but information. We had been living together in the United States, but when I got a position in Trinity College, we, or perhaps she, decided we would get married. So the so the first line that you hear will be a repeat of the one ahead of it, behind it, if you like. Back home again in Ireland's Emerald Isle, we settle on a day, no going back. And when your uncle walks you up the aisle, my aunt cries out, "Good God, the bride's in black." November wedding, we deserve the plight of their sole source of heat, a supersare. Teeth chatter through the love and honour rite. It's doubtful if we're legally a pair. Our guests outpace us to the nearest pub. Hot whiskies are the order of the day. The fortified make short work of the grub and brave the rain to send us on our way. The Achill honeymoon likewise expired. Our maiden voyage foundered, wet and tired. At the bottom of the page it says, "We went home after one night on Achill Island." In November. So the second sonnet is number 5, and it's on page 47. And it says, "Oh yes, when our Owen arrived, we needed a proper house." So we need to think about house ownership, which quickly turns into a mild dispute. You want a bungalow? Oh, get a grip. I want a red brick. Oh, and where is the loot? The market sends us riverside and Bray. The train is just 5 minutes walk away. In Bray, the harbour, and of course the harbour bar. The train is just 5 minutes walk away. Another 5 will take us to the spar. We would regret that closeness to the sea when Charlie Hurricane pays us a call. We watch the water reach 2 feet, then 3, the writing and tide markings on the wall. And next month we are scheduled to begin a 1-year study leave in West Berlin. And at the bottom it says, "On our return to Dublin, we got a new house far away from the sea." The third sonnet, number 12, is on page 54, and it says, "Eileen's last months were in the hospice, where she gave a gala performance. Your boys put on the aprons this time round, not knowing that you have your own game plan. The days still left to you will be profound, well spent within this earth's empyrean. Of hospice angels, what else can they be? No talk of death or dying or of tears. You pour Prosecco, pass around the brie among your girls, the guardians of your years. By chance, your presence there will coincide with filming of a documentary about the hospice world from every side. You are the stars that you will always be. Your final words, we made each other laugh. You never did do anything by half." And indeed, she organised her own funeral, all by herself. So that's yep. Okay. Okay for one more, so? Where's Ed? All right, one? Yep. Okay. This is something from the the fourth section of the book. And I need to ask myself what it is. So the fourth section, the name of the fourth section is forgive me, sorry. It's the front. Oh yes, really, really great name. The Last Laugh. Okay, so I've two poems. Is that all right? Yes, two. Okay. Yeah. So the first one is called A Birthday Card, and it's a poem that I wrote that I actually sent to my wife Eileen for her birthday, because she had written to me on my birthday, and our birthdays are very close together. But when she wrote to me, she got the date wrong. Not the date of me, but of the year. She got the year wrong. And I thought, well, actually, Eileen was known for always knocking a year or two off her age. And so this is what I sent back to her. And I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember something called 57. No, maybe not. Nobody knows what 57 is? Exactly. Heinz. All right. Very good. Running out of time here, huh? Yes. So ironic. Ironic after a lifetime's lies about your age, discount applies. This sudden urge to tell the truth, to bring old chickens home to roost. In this one rare miscalculation, or maybe overcompensation, awards us both an extra year. Too generous by half, my dear. One rung closer to hell or heaven, read my lips, we're 57. Varieties of love and loss, forgive this dollop of sauce. And the last poem then, very quickly, is called, well, it's a poem that I need to be very, very careful because I don't know if many of you know about the Patrick Kavanagh Award. Some of you do, and I think there are people in this room that actually have the Patrick Kavanagh Award. And the name of this poem, this is Sour. This me, Sour. It's called Not Winning the Patrick Kavanagh Award for the umpteenth time. And you'll find it on pages 64 and 65. It goes on. So this is it. On not winning the Patrick Kavanagh Award for the umpteenth time, I mailed my poems to Monaghan, brown paper wrapped, tied up with cord, £10 enclosed to help me win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. The poems were rural, the meal bin, the turf stack and the new mown sward, in form and rhyme designed to win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. They tarried here and there with sin. Oh, sorry, how far did I get there? Yes, they tarried here and there with sin and held a note of bleak discord. I hungered for the day I'd win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. They showed the woman deep within, my muse, my oracle, my Gordian, not one snip and I would win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. My hopes, alas, were paper thin. They failed to strike the proper chord and fecked them judged unfit to win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. for angels dancing on a pin, the North in peaceable accord, were safer bets than me to win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. I should have held on to my tin. For truth to tell, I doubt, O Lord, if Patrick Kavanagh would win the Patrick Kavanagh Award. Thank you very much.